Today on Newsgirls, Jared Kushner developing Trump Riviera, super involved in the Gaza reconstruction effort,
even spoke face-to-face with the leaders of Hamas.
Victoria's Secret fashion show is a failure.
Went from 10 million viewers to 3 million.
The head of the show reportedly touched an angel's crotch.
Personally, I knew a lot of models having to starve themselves.
And a 1-year anniversary special.
And that's 153 stories, okay?
Mabel and I Zoom for at least 8 hours a day. Welcome back to Newsgirls. I'm Wren.
And I'm Mabel. And guys, it's our 1-year anniversary.
It's so crazy. So if you're watching, you see we are wearing Newsgirls shirts to celebrate. But before we get into that, let's hit some of the hardcore news. Mabel, where the heck did Jared Kushner come from? Like, we have not seen him since Trump took office again. And then suddenly in the last week, he's responsible for peace between Israel and Palestine.
I know, it seemed like he was kind of in political exile, just kind of hanging out in Miami with Ivanka for Trump's second term until he kind of popped out of nowhere. But it wasn't just him. I guess Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's Middle East envoy, also helped really put this whole deal together, which is surprising because the two of them don't really have a strong political or diplomatic background. They actually worked in New York real estate, but they've really been hands-on with this deal. They were involved in Egypt with all the crucial negotiations with all those Middle Eastern countries, and then actually proposed the deal to the Israeli cabinet. Apparently, they even spoke face-to-face with the leaders of Hamas at like the Four Seasons in Egypt.
Yeah, they're literally being called the chief architects of this 20-point plan. And I guess on Saturday, they both visited Gaza with the IDF and the top U.S. commander in the region to inspect parts of Gaza. And that's pertinent because the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Jared and Steve Witkoff will be super involved in the Gaza reconstruction effort. And they're actually in early discussions with developers to pursue Trump's Riviera of the Middle East vision.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. Remember, during Trump's first term, Jared was kind of the one who was talking about how waterfront property in Gaza would be super lucrative. So he kind of invented the idea of Trump Gaza.
I just can't believe this is real.
I
thought it was just that AI video meme joke, but I guess Jared has already been in touch with associates who could serve on a Gaza development board.
And it's interesting to see how they describe themselves. They call themselves deals guys who work for the ultimate deal guy, which is Trump. It seems like their approach in getting this done is very simple. It's get a yes first. No matter what you do, just get a yes, get an agreement on the table, and hash out all of the details later, which is very evident in this peace plan that gets pretty confusing. Where we're at right now is that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire. And just earlier this week, we saw all of those videos of, the hostages that were finally released from Gaza, and then over 2,000 Palestinian prisoners released from Israel. And all those videos were really emotional because everyone was just happy to be reunited after 2 years of fighting. Another huge win is that the UN finally started delivering aid to Gaza.
But experts say that still is not enough food because there are just harrowing numbers coming out of the World Health Organization. So they categorize hunger in 5 phases from 1, none, to phase 5, which is catastrophe, famine. And 641,000 Palestinians are in that worst phase 5.
Wow.
And then in the phase 4, which is right below, which is emergency hunger, 1.1 million are in that phase. And put in perspective, 0 are in phase 1 and 2, which is minimal stress.
Wow.
Well, in the meantime, Trump obviously visited the Middle East earlier this week. He gave a speech to the Knesset, which is Israel's parliament in Jerusalem. And he called it the historic dawn of a new Middle East. Quote, generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change. And then in the middle of his speech, he also encouraged Israel's president to pardon Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's facing corruption charges, and called Netanyahu one of the greatest wartime leaders. And then Trump went to Egypt for the Middle East summit with 24 other Middle East leaders, including the president of the Palestinian Authority. But the big question is, Trump has made no mention through all of this if he's looking at a 2-state solution.
Right, which is part of what has made this deal just so confusing and weird, because what is actually the path to long-lasting peace?
Well, the mediators that helped them reach this deal said that the two sides decided to delay talks on the most difficult issues because neither side was ready for a comprehensive peace plan.
And I guess that makes sense. It's just, it feels like everything can fall apart very easily. So we looked through this 20-point peace plan, and there's 3 sections that really stood out to us that feel like they do need to be hashed out ASAP. So the first part is post-war Gaza. Trump's plan says that Gaza basically has to be governed by a technocratic Palestinian committee plus a board of peace that's headed by Trump. And I mean, Hamas says that it's open to the idea, but obviously all these details need to be worked out. But to me, I feel like Gaza is destroyed. I mean, there's no economy, there's no hospitals, there's nothing. So who's going to pay to rebuild it? Will it be Israel or like other countries are going to pitch in? There's no mention of that. Then the second big point is disarmament. So Hamas would have to basically lay down all of its weapons, which makes sense, and either seek amnesty or leave Gaza for exile abroad.
And this is a super important point because Netanyahu has repeatedly said the war cannot end unless Hamas is disarmed.
And the last point that feels the most important is that the peace plan calls for full Israeli withdrawal, like the troops need to be gone from the region. But Israeli troops are still there, and it's unclear when and if they'd ever leave. And already we're seeing instances of violence. So on Monday, when Palestinian prisoners were being released, an Israeli armored vehicle shot rubber pellets and tear gas at crowds that were watching these prisoners being released. And then Tuesday, 5 Palestinians were killed by a drone strike.
Doesn't that count as breaking it?
No one has said anything. So that's the thing. The peace plan sounds great on paper, but who is enforcing any of this?
Well, checking back in with Jared, he and Ivanka spoke to a rally of tens of thousands at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. And that's the square where hostage families and supporters have gathered every week for the past 2 years, waiting for their loved ones to return. And Jared said a very cryptic tease. He said the negotiations have been rocky. One day we'll tell you the story. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It was crazy.
Who would laugh?
And then Ivanka said, the president wanted me to share that he sees you, he hears you, he stands with you always. But while she was speaking, the crowd held a big banner that said, Nobel President Trump, and chanted, thank you, President Trump. But what's crazy is when Steve Witkoff mentioned Netanyahu, the crowd booed.
So you're probably wondering, why was Jared a part of this entire peace plan? And the answer is that he kind of has crazy contacts in the region. Remember, during Trump's first term, he was Trump's senior advisor, which is a huge position. And during that time, he built a lot of diplomatic relations in Arab countries. So he was actually the architect of something called the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and 3 Arab states.
Yeah, and apparently he's been working behind the scenes this term more than we realized. So he advised Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on trade negotiations with China. He also has been involved in bipartisan criminal justice talks behind the scenes.
Yeah, he seems like he's kind of everywhere because his role now is a lot more foggy. He's a volunteer advisor. And even though he's gotten a lot of bipartisan support for what he's been doing, it's weird that he isn't a government employee because he isn't subject to laws and disclosure requirements that would prevent conflict of interest. So a lot of people are worried about his business dealings in the Middle East. Like Kushner's private equity firm, Affinity Partners, for which he's taken money from all of these government wealth firms in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE.
And the firm manages almost $5 billion of assets, so that's a ton.
And it's not just business. He seems to have some close personal relations with a lot of very powerful figures in the Middle East. So during Trump's first term, Jared was apparently texting the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia all the time.
Casual.
And he was texting him so much that Trump's national security team would get really annoyed at him because he was just bypassing protocol, texting him all the time. And then apparently Jared also kind of knows Netanyahu. They go way back. When he was a teenager, Jared apparently gave up his bedroom so that Netanyahu would have a place to sleep when he visited the Kushner's house in New Jersey.
That's wild. Well, he recently did a podcast, which I listened to, so you don't have to, and I will tell you what he said. So he recently launched a company called Brain Co., which is funded by a lot of Silicon Valley billionaires. And it literally helps companies identify how they can better use AI in their workflow. And no one knew about this company. It was in stealth mode until a month ago when it came forward to announce that it had secured $30 million in financing. And since Brainco works around the world, it's very international, Jared kept emphasizing that his savvy was all learned when he was being a public servant. In Trump's first term, he called it an intense PhD, basically, that he got. And the craziest thing is he said one of their clients is a small foreign government and that Brainco helped them digitize their records and archives, but he wouldn't say which one. So, who is it?
And a reporter asked Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, about this conflict of interest, and she was very defensive in her answer.
Frankly, despicable that you're trying to suggest that it's inappropriate for Jared Kushner, who is widely respected around the world and has great trust in relationships with these critical partners in these countries, to strike a 20-point comprehensive detailed peace plan that no other administration would ever be able to achieve.
I mean, honestly, this makes me think that the government needs a non-compete. Like, you know how some jobs make you sign an agreement that if you leave the company, you won't work in the industry for like a year or two? I mean, the government needs that too, so you can't just take the official contacts and official information that you learn working for the government into your own personal business right away. But that's not the only conflict of interest question being asked. Why is this peace deal happening right now?
And that is a question that we keep asking because for so much of this war, Trump didn't really care all of that much. But this all kind of seemed to really change when Israel fighter jets launched 10 missiles into Qatar on September 9th and killed 6 people. And that's what really jump-started this aggressive strategy from the U.S. to get this peace deal done. And it's because the U.S. administration, especially under Trump, has become very, very close with Qatar. They've poured billions of dollars into like U.S. companies, especially ones that directly benefit Trump's family and his friends.
They gave us the free decked out huge plane that Trump's going to take with him when he leaves office.
So then Trump took to Truth Social after this attack and said that he was really unhappy. And then a couple weeks later, he passed an executive order saying that no matter what, he's going to protect Qatar and like defend them through anything, kind of, you know, warning Israel, being like, back off. And so a UN ceasefire proposal came just a few weeks after, and Trump, for the first time, really started to pressure Netanyahu, being like, you need to sign this deal. It's time to get this war over with. And this is crazy. Reporting has come out that before the press conference announcing this ceasefire plan, Trump cornered Netanyahu in the Oval Office and like forced him to call the Qatari prime minister, being like, you need to apologize to him right now. And a Qatari official and a bunch of White House officials helped him write the apology and stayed in the Oval Office to make sure that he actually like stayed true to script. And Jared Kushner was also in the room.
That's crazy.
Wow. Well, that was a lot. I mean, obviously, peace between Israel and Palestine is such a huge accomplishment. It's something Trump should be very proud of, but we can't go through this whole piece without, of course, mentioning the fact that Trump's new vendetta is now against the Nobel Peace Prize Committee because he didn't win.
So he kind of lashed out. He said he ended 8 wars and he was coming for Obama because of his win, and said that Obama got the prize for doing nothing but destroying our country, and said his own 2024 reelection was much more important than Obama's historic win in 2008.
Who's even talking about that right now?
And funny, so we know Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado ended up winning the award because she's fighting for democracy in Venezuela. And actually, if you look at the Truth Social receipts, Trump inadvertently had boosted her chances through a Truth Social post where he called her a freedom fighter and said she must stay safe and alive, and was basically just applauding what she was doing. So that's a big oops moment. But maybe because of his work with the ceasefire, we'll see how it holds. Maybe he'll win it next year.
So the Victoria's Secret fashion show was last night in New York City. And if you grew up in like the 2000s or the 2010s like us, you'll remember just how iconic and kind of glamorous this show was. There's these huge glowing models walking down in angel wings, wearing like $1 million bras across these huge runways. And I remember like as a kid, just like looking up like how to look like a Victoria's Secret angel.
Oh man, that just reminded, I still use Charlotte Tilbury foundation because she did all the angels for the show.
No, they were really influential for us.
Yeah, no, it would be unheard of to not be following all of them on Instagram, like Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosio, Candace Swanepoel, and that was obviously a more recent wave, like Tyra Banks and Gisele Bundchen were more of the originals. And it was like being inducted into the sisterhood was the biggest catapult for a modeling career.
But the brand itself has a funny origin story. So it was founded in 1977 by this guy who went lingerie shopping for his wife. And apparently it was just a terrible experience. He was at a department store and the service was unpleasant and the lingerie was ugly or really expensive. So he wanted to make a brand that made lingerie fun and affordable and accessible. And it's called Victoria's Secret in reference to Queen Victoria and like Victorian style lingerie. And the secret is what's hidden underneath her clothes.
But then starting in 1995, the VS fashion show became a huge part of the brand. 10 million people watched every year. It took place around the world and it really showcased designers because they designed these gorgeous, creative, colorful wings and bra designs and everything. But then in 2019, it was just suddenly canceled.
Right. So for one, the brand just felt super behind the times. Like all the models were like size 0 and most of them were white. And so the show went from 10 million viewers to 3 million in 2018. It was like a huge drop.
Yeah, this was when brands like Aerie by American Eagle or Savage X Fenty by Rihanna were really popular. And Savage even did like a similar fashion show, but they had models of all different shapes, sizes, colors. Like it was just way more inclusive. And at this time too, a well-known plus size model actually launched a petition to boycott the Victoria's Secret fashion show until they had body diversity and inclusion.
So that was already a lot for Victoria's Secret to deal with because it as a brand just was always pushing to be light and sexy and fun. But all of a sudden, it got really wrapped up in a lot of heavy controversy. And a lot of it centered around the CMO, Ed Rasick, who was the most powerful guy at Victoria's Secret. He was like in control of a lot of what the show did. And their downfall kind of started when Rasick had that infamous Vogue interview, remember that, in 2018, where he was slamming the need for diversity in the shows.
And then a lot more came out about Ed Rasick, who reportedly touched an angel's crotch, asked models to sit on his lap, yelled at models for eating certain foods, would ask models for their numbers at castings when they're just wearing lingerie, and he attempted to kiss some of them. And a model who had walked in the show 4 years in a row said that after she rejected Rasick's advances, she was fired.
And as if all of this wasn't bad enough, the worst possible thing happened that could like ever happen to a brand. It became associated with Jeffrey Epstein. There's reports of Les Wexner, who's the owner of Victoria's Secret, giving Epstein money. Apparently he gave him his $51 million Upper East Side townhouse and a Boeing 727. Yikes. And Epstein's relationship with Victoria's Secret was so intertwined that apparently he lied to aspiring models saying that he worked for the brand and would help them land gigs. And according to court filings, he even invited 2 women to auditions that ended up in assault.
Oh my God. So there was really nothing else for them to do except a major overhaul, and that's what they did. Ed Rasick left the company, and VS announced there would be no more angels. They started having more body inclusivity in their photo shoots and campaigns. And then last year, they brought the show back. It featured plus-size models and trans models.
But it's interesting because it's the show's second year back after its hiatus, and we're seeing some familiar branding like creeping back in. So there's a lot of campaigns that have to do with angel wings, and we're seeing so many of the models from back in the day, like Adriana Lima, Gigi Hadid, Lily Aldridge that walked in it last night, are again the faces of the show. So even if you have more diversity, it begs the question of how much has the brand changed?
Well, to really investigate that, we are speaking to the model that we referenced who launched the petition against Victoria's Secret for more body inclusivity. And it's actually credited with helping bring the show down in 2019. Her name is Robin Lawley, and she's an Australian model. She's 6'3".
So cool.
Crazy. And she was actually the first plus-size Sports Illustrated swimsuit model ever. And she's been on the cover of Vogue Italia, French Elle and Marie Claire, and Cosmo Australia.
Okay, so Robin, you filed a petition urging Victoria's Secret to incorporate more diversity in its models. So can you just help us set the scene of the culture at Victoria's Secret and around the show, and what just influenced this petition for you?
Yeah, well, personally, I knew a lot of models that were doing the show every year and having to starve themselves for this Victoria's Secret fashion show. And every year I thought maybe this year would be the year that they would use a curvy girl, and every year they wouldn't. And then Savage Fenty had an amazing show and then just sent down like what I dreamed Victoria's Secret could be. So me and the Third Love lingerie company got together with I Support Girls, a charity, to kind of urge them to use diversity. I'm proud I stood up and said something because it was, it's really hard to say anything as a model because you really, anything you say has a rebound effect on your own career. But I've casted with Victoria's Secret, years prior with their catalog. So that's why I thought they were maybe itching to use a curvy girl. But every time Ed Rasick would open his mouth, he always had something derogatory to say about a woman's body that was anything bigger than a size, 4. He always rejected the use of anyone bigger than like Adriana Lima was the maximum, or Tyra Banks. You know what I mean? That was the maximum size they would use.
And so since the show was canceled for a few years, it has now come back. Last year was the first year, and it is different. Have they changed enough, or do you think they still have more work to do?
I think they've definitely done a 180, to be honest, because I wanted them to do that in, 2018. They've actually employed one of the women one of the CEOs from Savage Fenty, to be the new CEO of Victoria's
Oh,
Secret. So
wow.
they've followed my idea, like use diversity, use what your customers are, because when I go into Victoria's Secret, I see a really wide range of women. I see tall, short, curvy, not curvy. I see all ethnicities. I see all ages. So I don't see the problem in using that in your fashion shows, especially because you have a really profound effect on young girls. Like it really affected me as a teenager growing up. And I'm sure other girls my age were really affected as well.
And have you personally returned to shopping at Victoria's Secret?
I just wanted to go see the curvy mannequins, and I saw lots of curvy models on the advertisement. I saw the bigger mannequins, and it was it was such a happy moment.
Why do you think it took Victoria's Secret so long to finally get there when you're seeing all of these other brands do that?
Money, honey. I think it took a lot of money to be lost. I think their shares went from $76 down to like $17. The buyers ended up showing up. You are the buyer. You don't have to stand by that. And you go into that store and you feel uncomfortable, then don't buy it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it didn't make me feel good, those runways. I can't be Adriana Lima. I can't be Giselle Bundchen, the most beautiful women in the world. Why can't we have as well a different ethnicity and a different curve?
And it's so great to see this progress. But we know, especially when you were beginning, there was so much toxicity in the modeling industry and so much pressure to look a certain way. Can you tell us about what it was like on the inside?
Plus models we were laughed at, to be honest. Like we were a joke back then. I mean, the thought of a Victoria's Secret ever including a curve model was just not even a thought. So it was really toxic back then. And I think it's had such a shift because the reality is they finally woke up to plus size not being just a size, 12. That's actually more an average size of a woman. So I think
Yeah.
they just woke up to needing to feature women of all sizes and ages for that matter. Like the age, now that I'm an older woman myself, I start to realize that the age is very important to feature age diversity. And I love seeing that now in runways too. So it is changing.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a 19-year-old in lingerie when I'm buying lingerie. I want to
Yeah.
see a 36-year-old woman that has curves that represents my body. I don't understand why it's taken them so long. It went to a really toxic level when we had certain people in power really promoting certain body types. And that body type is very little girl-like almost. And I think we've needed to add just diversity because it's lingerie.
Yeah, it's like a product that you're selling to women, but they kind of made it seem like the entire brand needed to be for the male gaze. So there seemed to be
Yes.
this like disconnect between the models on the runway versus real women who are trying to buy bras, basically.
Exactly. And in those stores, I don't really see many men.
Right.
So you were the first plus size model, if we're correct, to be in Sports Illustrated swimsuit. And you said that working with them actually helped you find love and confidence in your body. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that shoot to be like that. I was really, 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 really nervous for this experience. I can't tell you how nervous I was.
Yeah.
I was actually pregnant too at the time,
How?
secretly. So
Whoa.
it was a very, very nervous-wracking. And they'd never featured anyone over any bigger size. Kate Upton was the biggest they had gone. It was a very nerve-wracking experience, but I loved it because the women on set are very uplifting and like they really know how to cheer a girl on. And I remember showing up and being worried about my stretch marks. Oh no, don't even worry about that. It made me feel really happy. And some of those photos are still today some of my favorite, shot by James McCary, and they're just so beautiful. I love it. At Yosemite.
That's amazing. A lot of our audience watching is going to be women our age who have seen these images their whole life growing up with the Victoria's Secret fashion show, how it was. Any advice for loving your body, no matter what it looks like?
My advice is definitely get your health in order. In that health, you will find the love for your body because you realize it is such a temple. And I love doing yoga. I think yoga is probably the most profound thing I have now. I went down a rabbit hole just yesterday of Canis Swanepoel. That can happen to anyone. So don't feel so bad. And I always try to, how I talk to myself now is how I would talk to my daughter.
And just to kind of wrap up, do you have a message two girls who want to get into the modeling industry.
Yeah, a girl just asked me the other day about this, and you find your place. I think there's a place for everybody. I think definitely now more than ever, you own the space. There's social media. Like it's a different world. There's no longer you have to apply for an agency and the agency has to approve you. You don't have to do that anymore. So it's kind of awesome. There's a whole different genre of models coming out that have just done their own thing and they look awesome and are awesome.
Well, welcome to an extremely special segment because it's our 1-year anniversary special.
Yes, if you couldn't tell from our shirts, which is, of course, our cover photo.
Yes.
We are celebrating.
Today, Newsgirls is officially 1 year old. It means this is our 51st episode. So yes, do the math. We did that all in 1 year.
And that's 153 stories, okay? Can everyone wrap their
153
minds
stories
around that?
So we thought today we'd just do a little retrospective on looking back in the past year, maybe tell you some behind the scenes of how the sausage gets made and even how the show came to be. So we told this story on our original welcome where Mabel and I were 60 Minutes journalists trying to reach a younger audience. So we pitched around, we got a podcast deal, and that is the story of Newsgirls. But underneath there was so many different iterations of the show, even like different names that we were considering.
Yeah, one of the front runners was like hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses is a classic journalism slogan. For a while, we actually thought it was going to be called Verite. So you can see I'm holding up. We made journals that say Verite,
and that means truth in French. That's so smart. That's still my favorite. Like,
it's so good.
Yeah. We got some feedback that it wasn't clear enough what we were trying to do. Like, look it up. Also, now that you brought this book up, it's actually our secret book. We're not going to tell you what's inside yet. Maybe on our 2-year anniversary. It documents all of me and Wren's adventures, pitching. We'll go through this one day.
Behind the headlines was a big one.
That was a big one.
Ultimately, we settled on Newsgirls because Newsgirls were the first women who worked in the journalism industry in the late 1800s with newsboys on the corner selling papers. So we love the history. We think it has, but it sounds like a young name. Like when you say Newsgirls, that sounds like we came up with it today.
Yeah, it's snappy, it's fun, it's easy, and unique.
So then we took a cover photo. We're so happy with how that turned out. And then it was time to launch the show. And originally we weren't even thinking we were going to do interviews. Remember our first interview with Keith Edwards? We're sorry, Keith.
We thought it was just going to be a soundbite or two. So we put him in. He was such a huge get for like 2 seconds.
Oh my God, we were so excited to talk to him.
And we don't even speak during the interview. We're just kind of sitting there.
We're like the American Gothic painting.
Yeah.
We're just like staring at him.
But we had to learn. It was all a learning process. We had to come up with like the font and the colors and the intro and the outro. How long should it be? All of these things.
What is our tone? Like we wanted it to sound like two friends catching up, but then that almost makes it sound like it's gonna be more casual than it is. We still want it to feel like dense and you're getting information and it's very credible. And to make all of this happen, we feel the need to tell you that Mabel and I Zoom for at least 8 hours a day, every day.
Every day.
So we are talking literally all day, every day. Our entire job is to talk to each other.
Whenever I tell my friends and family, they can't believe it because we just take a 1-hour break for lunch and that's it. Otherwise, we are constantly talking. We're constantly interfacing because we're coming up with the vision together.
And then even after we sign off of our FaceTime, we're always texting. The work never stops because the searching for stories, most of them takes place and the research takes place before and after work. So it's like the job is never done.
And since we are always talking, there is a very colorful world of Newsgirls that Wren and I belong to, where like every single thing we see is somehow connected back to Newsgirls on our stories.
Yeah, I compare it to in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, how the dad is like, give me any word and I'll tell you how it's Greek. And like we can do that. If you tell us any word, we'll tell you how it relates to a Newsgirl story.
Yeah, so we're always just texting on the side of working, just being like, did you see this? Like, oh my God, doesn't it totally
The
remind
rat
you?
czar? The rat czar left her position. She loves rats.
She loves rats, so it's really hard for us. There's something that always happens with like me and Wren's names that are just really funny. So whenever we like turn our videos into social clips, we add captions and they always transcribe Wren as Ron.
Ron. And whenever we transcribe it, it's always Ron and I.
It's always Ron and I. And so that's her alter ego. And I just think it's so funny because it's like Mabel and Ron.
Ron. Like it's such a losery name. And weirdly, no one can pronounce or sometimes even type Mabel's name. We've gotten
why?
everything. Like we went on one podcast and they said Mabel Kabini
Yep.
instead of Kabani. Ren and Michael.
Yeah, that was like a terrible time.
We'll never forget that
I was like,
one.
Michael?
What one podcast called you Mal? And we had to be like, oh, sorry. Like, actually.
And that's awkward because they're like introducing you, and I'm just like,
You're like, so happy to be here.
Not Mal.
Actually, we also have what we call our hillbilly alter egos. Sometimes when you're just like talking and typing fast,
and for some reason, Ren and I think it's hilarious when one of us makes these mistakes. We actually laugh forever.
like I spelled France once, Frans, like France.
And corrupt, Current.
Corrupt.
Corrupt. And with all amazing work, we do obviously have our haters, which we've also enveloped into our Newsgirls world, because there's like a certain type of person that really comes after us. These people that call us AI and like, what, like stupid girls who don't know anything?
Sometimes, yeah, it's sometimes like, now go back to talking about your nail
Makeup.
polish.
And then also the haters that think we're the same person. Is it just one person talking and they just changed clothes?
Like, Mabel and I look so different.
I'm literally brown. And that is also really confusing for a lot of the viewers. They're like, two white women who don't know what they're talking about. If you're going to insult us, like, insult us right.
Well, some people, even in person, have asked us if we're sisters.
Yeah. Twins. Remember that time
Twins.
twins?
We've gone as twins. We are different ethnicities.
Like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
It's crazy how much like a winged eyeliner can fool people.
So we've like started to joke that like we have this like brain meld and that there are a lot of ways, not physically, like we are becoming the same person. It's so crazy when you're talking to someone for 40 hours a week. Like I feel like I know what you're going to say.
If I did something, I'll say we. Like Ren the other
Feels
day
wrong.
was like, we were scrolling on TikTok, like we were in bed together scrolling, but she was scrolling through TikTok. It feels weird to say I, like we have to say we. It's this like joint unit
No,
always.
it feels illegal. Like I can't exclude Mabel from this experience that I had.
You know, when people email us like Mabel or like Mabel/Ren, like Ren/Mabel,
Yeah.
like we're
We
like
don't even get an
interchangeable.
and.
But there is something that Ren uniquely gets ownership.
No, I hate this.
And it's a term we unfortunately had to create, and it's called being Rend. And it's something that specifically happens to us during interviews.
happens to me more, okay? Where you ask a question and you get completely rejected. Like
Yeah.
you're just brutally rebuffed.
But what's funny, and like the reason it even became a term was because like the first couple times it happened, Ren's reaction, like someone would like just like kind of reject her and like say something over, and she would just be like, oh yeah, like just like smile dead like into the camera.
It's like, and why is your favorite color red? My favorite color is not red, it's blue.
Oh, it's blue.
Well, Mabel one time really embarrassed me. So for the Starbase story, remember we did a story on Elon Musk's like weird SpaceX town Starbase, and the name of the first mayor is Robert. But Mabel had written in the notes, Richard. So we were talking to the head of voting, and I said, and so we understand the first mayor is going to be Richard. And he was like, well, no, actually, it's going to be Robert, blah, blah, blah. And it was so embarrassing for me because I didn't even write that. Mabel had put that in there. Sabotage.
Ren got totally Ren because of my notes. And I was like, we communicate in like Google Docs while interviews are happening sometimes. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. Like, if there's anything I can do, I'm so sorry.
I was like, it's fine.
Well, thanks for sabotaging me, Ren, just now by outing me.
We have our delusional moments too, where we think like we're the biggest podcast. We're basically Call Her Daddy, and there's no one who wouldn't want to come on Newsgirls. And especially in the beginning, before we realized our place, we
Realized our place.
took that to the extreme.
We just like reached out to everyone before our podcast even launched. Bill Clinton,
And we literally were like, hi,
Mr. President. We have this great podcast. If you want to be our first guest.
Yeah, like he's like, no.
Oprah,
Yeah.
Gloria Steinem.
Hillary Clinton.
Oh, the president of the EU, Ursula
You know
von der
what?
Leyen.
We got a response from her team.
We did. She said she was busy, or her team said she was busy.
Understandable.
So you can tell from our delusional reach outs that we are obsessed with Newsgirls. We're obsessed with the show.
Oh my gosh, Mabel got me this. Oh, if you're watching, you're blessed with the vision of the best book of all time. It says Happy 29th Newsgirl, and she went through all of our first episodes and shared her memories and like pictures and like funny stories. It is my prized possession.
We we go through it to like remember there's just so much that happens that we forget.
Yeah. We will never let any lore from Newsgirls ever die. If you listen to the show, you've noticed that we like to self-refer to past segments at all times.
We'll put up like a picture of like, it's like a blurry picture of our cover. Wait, okay, so what is, Wren and I will have the same answer for this. What is the story that we reference the most all the time? 3, 2, 1.
Ethics.
Okay, that's like the Trump ethics story that we did that we were really proud of.
Somehow is so core to everything.
It's core to the first segment that we just did.
Yeah, we reference it in every episode, basically. Well, it has been such an amazing first year. There's obviously been learning curves and speed bumps, but we feel so happy with how the show is. And not to be too annoying and teasing, but we have some really exciting things in the works that we can't wait for you to see.
And it's so exciting that's coming at this 1 year. It makes us really excited to keep going. And we're so thankful to all of you for like watching and being a part of this journey. So to another year.
Yay. Well, thank you for tuning into another episode of Newsgirls. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
And join us next week for a deep dive into CBS, our former employer's newest editor-in-chief, Barry Weiss.
Bye.